Everybody, it's Dr. Vibe. Always saying you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles and a solution for someone's problem. And we are fired up. We've got more great conversations happening tonight. If you want to touch base with me, you can touch base with me either via Twitter at DRVIBESHOW, or you can email me at drvibeshow.com. And there are other ways, but we'll just touch about it later. But I am Jack because we have two wonderful gentlemen on 4 different platforms live right now. So we've got, wow, this is good. I don't think anyone's done this before on Blab. Another first. I liked it.
You're blazing new ground.
We have
blazing new ground, man.
Well, and I'm taking you with me, right? So here we go. So we've got respectfully the brothers Regis and Galen Bingham on our comm tonight, and a few weeks ago and saying, it'd be great to do a show about brotherly leadership because both of them are very much passionate about leadership. And I said, why don't we just have you guys come on and talk about brotherly leadership? So they're going to make it happen. There's an open seat if you want to jump on. I hope you do. So let's get it started. Respectfully, I know Galen would always want to do this. Let's introduce Regis Bingham to our platform. Regis, how you doing tonight?
How you doing, Dr. Vibe?
I'll tell you, blessed, a magnet for miracles, solution for someone's problem. And I'm glad you asked me because I forgot to mention it at the beginning. So I'm feeling you, brother.
I can barely hear you, though.
Is that better?
Yeah, that is better. That is better.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so I'll just get closer to the microphone. Now, let the audience hear a little bit about yourself. Get a little bit, obviously, deeper during the conversation, but tell them and share about yourself.
Okay, my name is Regis Bingham. I am the younger brother of Galen. So I live in Pennsylvania, here in the States, and I just had a passion with wanting to help people live their best life. So I started out as studying psychology, and early on, I wanted to be a psychiatrist so that I could actually tell people that they were crazy and actually carry some weight. But what I ended up doing is just really researching a lot of areas in which I can help people live their best life. I've been certified as a clinical hypnotherapist, licensed as a financial professional, and I do a lot of community activism. So I'm a philanthropist, and that's about it. As if that's not enough.
No, there's more than that. No. We'll get to more of that down the road. We'll let you away with it this time, but we'll get you. We're coming back to get you. And Galen is no stranger to the Dr. Vibe conversation. But again, for those who are just on for the first time, the live relay, share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Galen Bingham. I am in St. Louis, Missouri, so in the center of the country. And I'm really, really focused on leveraging my 25 years in corporate America to help motivated leaders reclaim purpose and passion so that they can deliver results and create the kind of inspiration that would remain even after they're gone. I've got my own leadership development firm, and I've written and published 2 books now. So really trying to put my point of view out into the world, and really excited about this blab.
Excellent. So we're putting Regis on the hot seat first. Growing up, what was the relationship between yourself and Galen, and did you feel a sense of being a leader for him?
No, actually, growing up, Galen was always the leader, and I always looked up to him, and that's where I really learned behavioral modification. So as I watched my brother interact with my parents, because they were all new to me, and I'd watch him as he interacted, and if he got in trouble for something, then I would be like, oh, I'd never do anything like that. But if he got a response that I kind of liked, and I was like, okay, well, let me follow up right behind him, and I'll do exactly what he did. So I mean, that just seemed to make sense to me. So he was definitely the leader.
Galen, do you want Dr. William P. Clark saying, Regis, let Galen do all the dirty work?
Yeah, I tell you, that's one of the things that I recognize that Regis was doing, and I always appreciated that because, I mean, it's like, why would you do the exact same thing that got somebody else in trouble, right? And I've seen so many people, whether it's families or whether it's business leaders, today I see so many people just doing what everyone else is doing, and it didn't work out for them. It didn't work out for the people before them, but there they go. And so one of the things, and we're probably going to talk about a lot of this throughout the conversation, but one of the things I've always appreciated about Regis is that he always had the ability to kind of lay in the cut, assess the situation, and then decide how to act and when to act. And because he was, not reacting, but it was a thoughtful approach, he usually got the best results. Ticked me off because I was the one with the bruises. But I always appreciate that about him.
One of my hidden mentors, Tony Robbins, used to always say, "Success leaves clues." So I just look for the clues and just keep following right behind it.
Excellent. Let me ask both of you, how much impact did your parents' leadership have on you? And does it still have impact on you today in your relationship with each other?
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, of course, always. Yeah, it's I've had this conversation a couple of times. It's one of those things. Our parents, when we were growing up, I'm going to talk about myself. I didn't really see our upbringing as being special or different than anyone else, right? Because when you're in it, you're just living life. And now that I look back and I'm able to compare, my upbringing versus the upbringing that other people talk about today, and what I see in the media and other folks that I talk to. I do recognize it and appreciate it as being special, right? There are a lot of things that my parents did, my mom did, my dad did that were really, really kind of different. So for instance, my dad made it a point to teach both of us how to play chess, right? And he just made it a point to teach us how to play chess. Well, come to find out, he didn't know how to play chess. So he actually learned how to play chess in order to teach us how to play chess. And, now I look back and I think, what kind of foresight is that someone would say, here's something, here's a skill, here's a thought process that, my kids are going to need to have. And so I'm going to give them that, although I don't have it myself. And so, that kind of foresight really did teach me anyway, that to be a leader, you've got to see beyond your current situation and your abilities, because if you don't, then your effectiveness can only go so far. Your effectiveness can only repeat what you've done. But my parents had foresight beyond what they were able to do themselves.
Regis, want to add to that?
Yeah, I believe Galen stole his book from my parents. Because when it comes to leadership residue, you're actually seeing the residue of our parents and the leadership that they instilled, the whole thought process. There are a lot of times that I may be counseling a person and I swear my mom would just come out of me or my dad would just come out of me. And it's almost as though I've stepped out, they've stepped in to replace exactly what's being said. Actually, I was just telling Gail, I'm in an international speech competition, and it just kind of came out as an inspirational speech. but my dad just kind of took over as I was formulating the speech, and that we were just talking about Tracy McGrady, but my dad would always say, play the game to the end. As long as there's a second left to go on the clock, then the game is not over. You continue to play the game to the end. And that's kind of how I live my life. It doesn't matter what it looks like. You know, as long as you're playing, you still got a shot. And my mom, on the other hand, I really see the impact because and sometimes it kind of messes with me because she's always instilled, treat people the way you want to be treated. And so I'm thinking, and the way she instilled that, I'm thinking that that's how, those are the rules of life. And that's how everybody does. So if I'm thinking that, okay, if I'm showing you how I'd like to be treated, then that's how I'll be treated. So those are just two things that really have impacted the way I live my life today.
Excellent. Galen, your brother is giving you homage when you were growing up, that you were the leader, but I'm sure that Regis had a lot of positive impact on you growing up. Can you share a moment or two, a memory or two when you were growing up where your older brother showed you a great leadership moment or a great leadership quality?
Yeah, I guess the analogy that I think about is, the reason why the lion is always blustering and the lion is always tough and always fierce is because there's always a young lion trying to take his place, right? And so he's got to be tough. He's got to be on the case, and that was certainly the case with Regis. You know, we used to always joke about how much money we were going to make when we were adults, right? And I knew that I had to be on my game if I was going to deliver that, because Regis was going to be right behind me. And so there are just a couple of things that I continue to think about when I think about our childhood, that Regis just showed wisdom and his perspective. There was one time when he was going out to play football for the first time. He'd never played football before, other than Sandlot. And, other kids had been playing for years, right? Other kids knew the plays. They knew the technical way to play. And Regis just decided, I'm going to go out and play. And so they asked him, so what position do you play? And Regis said, well, I play quarterback. And we're like, well, Regis, you've never played organized football before. How you going to play quarterback? And he said, well, if I can't be quarterback of the whole team, I can be quarterback of myself, right? And so it was just this wisdom of, this is the vision that I have for who I am, and I'm not afraid to voice and share with the world and inform them of who I am, so that they can make the decision for themselves as to how they're going to deal with me. But and then there's just that foresight, the wisdom, and that's something that you have to listen to. You have to recognize, even as an older brother.
Well,
Excellent.
Thank you,
Regis. Let me ask: did you realize or recognize the impact on your brother when you were growing up together?
Not necessarily my impact on him. I was always just looking up, and I was just trying to be so much like him. There's a lot of things that he just did just from a leadership standpoint, and just being able to, I noticed how other people looked up to him and wanted to be like him and gravitated towards him. And he was always just the cool person, right? He was class president. He was star of the basketball team. He was the homecoming king and all that. And I was like, man, and so I'm always not jealous of that. I'm very proud of that. And that was something that my parents also instilled in us growing up, which I find odd when I see how other families don't operate from that standpoint, it just kind of really throws my worldview to the point that I really have a hard time understanding when you've got family doing well. You should celebrate that because that's also a win for you. And you're going to want to help your family do well. But I always looked up to my brother. I really didn't see it as I'm having an impact on him as much as he's having an impact on me.
I would just to comment on that a little
That's
bit.
good stuff.
For me, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I never really thought about, and there's a question on the side from Dr. William P. Clark about how do you guys define leadership? And, today I can say that I've got a definition of leadership. But back then, I don't know that I was informed enough to really know what leadership was. I felt a responsibility, obviously, to set an example and to do the right thing. I don't know that was necessarily a definition of leadership at the time. But hey, look, here's the thing. I mean, we're just living our lives at the time. And I think both of us felt and got this really from our parents that we've got a responsibility to not only do what's right for us, but to make it easier for other people. Right. It would be so much easier for me to do only what's right for me and be on my way. But my dad used to say, what good would it do for me to educate my kids and then they have to get out and deal with a whole bunch of knuckleheads, right? So I've got to do what's right for the whole community. And so that really kind of set the tone for me anyway, right, that we've got a responsibility to, more than just ourselves. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, Dr. William P. Clark. But today, I would definitely define it as, leadership is the ability to inspire people. John Quincy Adams said, if you can inspire people to want to be more, to learn more, to do more, then you're a leader. And that certainly is center stage as to how I define leadership today.
Oh, I have a much simpler definition. I'm not one that am studying. My definition is if there's anybody following you, you're a leader. All right, and if nobody is following you, you're just taking a walk. So
I like that. I like that.
By that definition, any and everybody can be a leader. Our parents are definitely leaders because we were following them. Anybody can do that. It doesn't mean that you are leading them well or in making some positive changes, but if people are following you, then you definitely are a leader. Hey, Revel.
Yeah, what is up? And also, Mom's winning. Oh boy, if I unlock this seat, watch out. That's a left-right combo. I don't know if you're both ready, but hello and shout out to both of you, by the way. But I'm understanding. I'm sure that both of you went to different post-secondary, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a kind of an interesting story about that I just recently.
Okay, go ahead.
This just recently dawned on me because, I grew up a public school kid and just really, really proud of my public school education. And when we moved to St. Louis, private school is a really, really big thing here. It's a really big deal. And when I moved here, I was almost arrogant. I was almost arrogant about public school. And I said, hey, look, there's stuff you learn in public school that those fancy private schools can't teach you. Right. And that was just kind of my whole position. And I was just obnoxious with everybody. And, why am I going to spend all this money, all that other stuff. And so they were saying, OK, well, you're supposed to live in this part of town, but then send your kids to private school. And I'm like, that don't make any sense, you know? And so someone asked me why. And so I said, well, this is why. I said, you know, I'm public school. And I think I turned out all right. I said, as a matter of fact, my whole family is public school. I said, well, you know, except for my brother went to private school. So that, but, you know, but other than that, we all, I said, you know, now that I think about it, my sister went to private school too. Hey, wait a second, Mom, Dad, what's up? Wait a second, hold on. So that's kind of that. So yeah, we definitely had a different upbringing, and you know, I went the public school route the whole way through, and you know, Regis took a little different path.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, here's a gentleman that was surprised that we referred to him so formally. It is Dr. William Clark. And he asked me what we asked us why, because we believe in respect. It's the way we was raised. That's the way we as leaders were raised. We refer to people by their name. But you do have a question or a comment. So ask the brothers about their journey of brotherly leadership, by the way.
So can you guys talk about how your relationship is today and how the both of you guys may or may not be influencing each other?
Well,
you want to get started, Regis?
I'll go first on this one right here. Galen still affects me and leads me, even though we are miles apart. He's one of my best friends, and just being able to, I think, because he knows me probably most intimately, that I can talk to him just about anything. He understands my thought process, so it's not just what the canned answer or what would sound good. He really understands my thought process and how I'm able to navigate things. I just watch him and how he lives his life, and just as an example, sometimes it's not always what you say, but it's what you do. And like I said at the very beginning, that's kind of how I've gone through. I've gotten used to just watching him. And if he gets the results that I'm looking for, then I'm going to come right behind it and do it, because success leaves clues. And if he doesn't get the result I'm looking for, yep, I'm like, why bother doing that? I'd never, why would you do something like that? I'd never do anything like that, you know? So yes, he still is a big leader to me.
Yeah, you know, from my perspective, you know, one of the things that, you know, my path was decidedly corporate America, right? So I was a corporate dude, and you kind of fall into that whole mindset of you go to a good school, you get an education, you get a company job, you start working and get promoted and that kind of thing. And that was kind of the path that I was on. And one of the things that I saw Regis doing is he had kind of a bit of a corporate job, not really in corporate America, not big corporate America, but he always had these side gigs, these side hustles. And one of the things I've commented on before, this dude would go out and get degrees because he was curious about stuff, right? I mean, some of us would just read a book, right? But no, he needs to go get certified in something that he's curious about. And so that really, you know, kind of watching him do that really did make me curious about, hey, are there other ways to fulfill this thing called life? And what I believe now wholeheartedly is that there is no one entity that is big enough to fulfill all of my wonderfulness. There's no one place. And so it's unfair to ask corporate America, regardless of the company, regardless how great the company is, it's unfair to ask that company to allow me to do all the things that I have inside of me. And I think I got a lot of that from watching Regis on this different path. And, you know, another thing too, that Regis kind of spurred in me, I think I was heading down this path, but Regis kind of stepped stepped down that same path and blew it open a lot wider. And it's the idea of financial literacy and just really understanding how money works. I can remember, I took a couple classes in business school and was excited about it. Got on the phone and called Regis and I said, "Hey, Regis, check out this calculation. And what does this really mean? Think about what this really means." And I was really excited about it. And we started, looking at the financial implications of a couple of things. And then I go back to my corporate job. And then a couple of years later, Regis is like, "Oh, I'm getting ready to get my certification to be a financial planner." It's like, who does that?
Regis.
It's like, dude, just read a book, man.
Exactly.
Read. I'm studying for my series, whatever, because I really want to understand how money works. So
yeah, it's interesting to hear that.
Nice. For both of you brothers, tell me a moment one of you was going. You don't have to get too detailed, but a moment that one of you was, for lack of better terminology, on the line, and you reached out to your brother for leadership. If you're comfortable, you don't have to get deep into the situation, but if there's something you could share, that'd be great.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
No, I'm just saying, is there a moment that you could share with our audience? And you don't have to get too detailed, where you're on the line and you reached out to your...
I'm going to let you go, Galen.
yeah, I figured you'd let me go first.
I knew that was going to happen.
I can definitely think of some conversations that he and I had literally just this morning, because there were some opportunities, some things that I thought that I wanted to achieve in corporate America still. And it didn't work out. Actually, I was kind of in turmoil around those opportunities, because if I had acquired them, if I'd gotten into it, then there would have been more prestige and my ego would have felt great and I'd have had more power and all that stuff in corporate America, but it would have really compromised, all the things that I enjoy doing, so the leadership coaching, spending time with Dr. Vibe on Blab, and just all the other things that really speak to who I'm trying to become. It would have compromised all of that. And so come to find out, that didn't help, that it didn't come to pass. And so I called Regis and I said, "Man, I can't believe this happened. And, I'm upset about it." And, Regis was really, really calm, but he was like, "So which path would have gotten you closer to where you're trying to go?" So it was the calm wisdom again that I really appreciate. And I got kind of upset because he was saying things to me that I probably would have said to someone else, but it's not supposed to come back to me. And but again, just that calm wisdom, because it really did put me back in line with and something I shared with him, and something I truly believe, is that God has created all of us to be the greatest in the world at something. And therefore, our life's mission is to find that thing so that you can get on with becoming the greatest in the world. And, all these other things are distractions. They're nice. They feed your ego. They feed, your pocketbook. But if they're not in line with the thing that you're designed to be the greatest in the world at, then they're a distraction, and you're actually wasting time. And that's great wisdom for me to give to other people. It's hard wisdom for me to receive. So he was definitely there to kind of talk me down.
Well,
Regis, I want to know. Go ahead, Dr. Clark.
So
go ahead.
So let me ask this question. So I just finished this book on self-leadership, which is one of my favorite theories, and transposing my notes into my research database. And one of the notes I just wrote about was confidence, but more specifically, the transfer of confidence. Can you guys talk about how confidence may have been transferred from one to the other? Because what the author was saying here is that when confidence is transferred, in an environment that fosters it. The person, the individual, begins to position themselves where they can offload responsibility on parental figures who may have had some oversight over them. And so the confidence is meant to kind of be the cord cutter between what was and what will be. So can you guys talk about, or someone talk about, how each others have given each other confidence to do something that you didn't think you could do before?
That is a great question, by the way. I think you need to start home labs and get off my own. Start hosting your own labs now.
I'm gonna let Regis take this one.
Well, that was just the environment that we grew up in, and I wish my sister was on this blab because this is really her expertise. Because it was a matter of just go out and try it. And my dad would always instill and say, I don't care who it is. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you. So if they can do it, surely you can do it. And it's just a matter of finding a way. I remember hearing my dad share with Galen a lot, but because I was always in the back listening, I pick up that information as well. But he would always tell Galen when he's getting ready to go out and play basketball, there's a way to beat everybody, and so It's just a matter of you figuring that out. So the environment was always, I remember my sister was doing a research paper on Wilma Rudolph. Now, your typical person would go to the library, do some research or whatever. No, she was like, is she still alive? Oh, she is. Well, let me find out where she's at and call her up, and interview her. That cuts through all that. And so growing up in that environment and just doing things like that all the time, it didn't necessarily win us popularity points with our peers, because they were looking at it as like, why are you doing all this extra stuff? I'm just you're messing up the curve, But for us, it really built confidence that, why not? There's nobody that's for me anyway, there's nobody that's really out of my reach. If they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like me, then we can sit down and you may be a little further advanced. You may have some different skills, but there are also areas in which I may be advanced with different skills. We all have strengths and limitations.
Right. I would just add to that by saying that there was always an expectation. Again, coming from our parents, there was always an expectation that you would be doing these things and that you would take the leadership roles. And I'll never forget my dad. And again, I didn't see this while I was in it, but now that I look back, I'm like, wow, that was kind of cool. He said to me, I think it was my sophomore year in high school, he said to me, okay, so you're a sophomore. When are you going to run for president of your class? You haven't gotten into student government. I don't see you getting involved with all this. When are you going to run for class president? He didn't ask me, are you going to? Do you want to? Is this something you're interested in? He said, when are you going to? Right. So it was kind of an expectation that was going to happen, and you're kind of behind. Right.
Yeah.
And so that same expectation just kind of existed everywhere with everything. And, we just talked about playing sports, and, there's this idea that, and let me just kind of set all that up by saying, I was in high school, I was 6'2", 168 pounds. And my job was to guard the guy that was 6'8", or guard the guy that was 5'6". But if either of them scored 40 points, average 40 points a game, my job was to make sure that they scored something less. And so, to Regis's point, my dad's approach was, you can do anything that you are willing to work for, but you've got to think about how to do it. Right. You can't just go out there and bowl your way through. You got to think about how you're going to approach this. And again, that's just kind of just kind of the expectation. So back to your question specifically, sometimes you just need to have, sometimes there's value in having someone tell you that you're not crazy.
That's right. Yeah.
Just sometimes you just need to have someone to say, no, you're not crazy. I'm like, all right. And so that's one of the things that I definitely call Regis from time to time, just to get that. Hey, this is how I'm looking at it. It seems to make sense to me. Am I missing something? And he'll say, no, you're not crazy. Go ahead.
But he's certified to tell you that too.
Exactly.
You had talked about
and I'm just gonna add two things. Plus, no surprise, at moms_winning has a question, so we'll get to that in just a moment. Where Galen had said, and Regis has said, the expectation in the environment that they grew up in, you basically had to become a leader. And when I was reading from grade 8, going into high school, I remember going up to the graduation was held outside, nice lawn, etc. And I was blessed enough to receive the school's award in academics and athletics. So I go up there, get the award from the Minister of Education for our province. Great. Come back down, expecting my dad to say, congratulations. He said, the first thing he said to me is, you're going to university. I just got out of high school. I'm not even in high school yet. You're going to university. I hadn't stepped in a high school yet. You're going to university. So just piggybacking on what Regis and Galen said, that it certainly fosters your desire for leadership when you grow up in an environment that has leadership. To say it can't be had, but certainly helps the development process when you're in that sort of environment.
I just want to mention, because my mom had a way about her that was the same but more subtle. And I remember she used to pull things over on me that I was actually graduated from college. She'd do things while I was in high school. I didn't figure it out until actually I had graduated in college, what she was doing. And she'd simply say, so Regis, do you want to clean your room before dinner or after dinner? And so I'm like, I'll do it after. And it was like, oh, wait a second. How did I end up, as a high school kid, you don't want to clean your room, whatever. But she just had that subtle way of being able to get you to do things, whether you really wanted to do it or not. And there wasn't even I couldn't even combat it. I couldn't even figure out how to even get around it. But she was just very smooth with hers.
That they call that good leadership, because good leaders frame questions that kind of provide the parameters for the followers to respond to. So there was no way of getting out of that.
Right.
And I'll tell you, back to the comment that you made, and then I definitely want to address Mom's Winning's question. But you said a comment that you made kind of in passing. You said, he could definitely tell you if you're not crazy. Now, here's the thing. That was a comment that Regis made when he was laying in his bed in the 7th grade. He said, okay, I'm going to tell all your stuff here.
Okay.
He said, what I want to be on the Oprah Winfrey show and have Oprah Winfrey turn to me and say, Dr. Bingham, what do you think? Mm-hmm. And then Regis wanted to lean in, point his finger, and says, I think he's crazy. And have that mean something. Okay, so that's what he said in the 7th grade. So he goes and gets a degree in psychology and sociology. Right? Who does that? Dude, just read a book. You don't have to get certified in everything that you want to do. But I'll tell you, and actually, of all of us, he was the first of us to get an advanced degree.
Now, who's the oldest?
So I'm the older. Okay. So I'm actually the oldest of my brother and my sister as well. But Regis was the first of all of us to get an advanced degree. So as far as leadership, dude, I can't have my little brother.
Yeah.
No, come on now. And so that meant I had to get on my game. Okay, so now mom's
Excellent.
winning.
So what we're going to do is
Go ahead.
Mom's winning. Yeah, here's a great question. Said, was there ever a time when you didn't support the move of your brother? And if so, did you support him anyways? And she adds on to that, good leaders allow people to have their own discovery of life lessons rather than control their. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Well, I think that the way the last part of that statement answers how we approach things. And for the most part, everybody's trying to make it through this journey called life. And I believe, and this has just been in a counseling standpoint, this has always been my philosophy and framework that everybody makes the best decision at the time that they're making it, because it's based upon the skills that they have, the knowledge that they have, and the resources that they have. Now, later on, they may have more knowledge, they may have more skills that will have led to a different decision, but at the time that they're making it, that's the best that they can do. So what I've learned, even watching Galen, even if I may have made a different decision, I can learn something from his thought process and how he make his decisions. So I don't want to discourage that, because I didn't have all the information that he had in order to make that decision. So I don't really get into saying, oh, don't do that, or you need to make this decision, because I don't have all the information that he has. At the same time, I've learned that if he asks me, what would I do in that situation? I make sure I preface it, this is what I would do, because that's also keeping in mind, that's based upon my skill set and my knowledge. But ultimately, he's got to live his life. And we both have come up with the understanding that we make decisions and we live with the decisions that we make. Sometimes I would love nothing more than for him to just tell me what to do, but he doesn't. He'll just give me things to think about, but ultimately, I've got to make the decision, and I've got to live with the consequences of that decision.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Actually, I mean, the best that you can do is share the information, right? If I've got information that would lead me to make a different decision, I would share that information. But at the end of the day, it's got to be his call, because I've seen so many families now that it just don't work. Mm-hmm. Some families just don't work, and a lot of times it's because people are overstepping their bounds. And I'm sure it's out of love. In our family it would have been out of love, but you're still overstepping your bounds. And I've never seen that work. So, even in my coaching, right? When I do executive coaching, I can't tell anybody what to do.
That's right. All
I can say is, hey, here's some information.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
And this is what I heard you say earlier that you were trying to accomplish. Right. So does this decision get you closer to what you were trying to accomplish, or does it take you further away? And, I just, even in executive coaching, I try to reflect back what I've heard them say and share information that I think might be helpful.
Let me just jump in there, because, that comment kind of is striking a nerve, particularly as I kind of work through some challenges. What I find, and it's just observation, and I don't know if it's fully true, is that people who tend to be prescriptive about the path you should take forward really are projecting upon you what they desire in terms of a prescription for themselves. And typically we all do this. We give what we want, right? And we generally treat people the way we want to be treated. And I heard you mention God earlier. It's a scripture that talks about judgment. right? Don't judge that you may be judged by the same judgment standard you set. And so ultimately what it's talking about, to be short, is, the judgment you give out is typically how you judge yourself. So it's like a mirror. And one of the things that I struggle with is when people really try to project on you what they desire for themselves. And there's so much value in learning not to be prescriptive, because everybody's so different. And even as brothers, like, you guys know each other intimately, but I mean, come on, you don't know every nuance that Galen or Regis is going through to really counsel in a way that can be prescriptive. So all you can do is listen to what they tell you and give them the best information possible based upon what you're hearing, as opposed to trying to be clear in terms of what path should be taken.
Absolutely. And hey, you just mentioned something that seems like an opportunity for me to share some more about my brother, in the fact that both of us grew up in the church. Not necessarily every Sunday school, that kind of thing, but always with a foundation of the church. Grandfather was a Baptist minister, preached in hundreds of churches, and there was always this confidence that the word is true, right? And so even as we grew older, I got more involved in the church and just kind of sharing from a teaching standpoint what I know and how I approached it. My brother becomes a minister, so he's an ordained minister.
Regis, what don't you do?
Dude, just read the book. You don't have to.
Read the book.
You don't have to get certified.
That's funny.
In everything that you're curious about. But but I'll tell you, from a leadership perspective, what that teaches me though is you've got to do the work, right? There is no escaping doing the work.
Yeah.
If you want people to take you seriously,
right?
Because if you're only an inch deep, that's only going to go so far.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And that right there is what keeps me moving, keeps me going. When you have a brother that encourages you like that, and even you talked about the confidence, even if you weren't sure going in. When you hear things like that, you become more sure about what you're doing. I just was a little nervous. About a month ago, I've entered an international speech competition. And people were, of course, egging me on, oh, you can do it. Yeah, you can do it. And so I went and I did it, and I passed the first round. And Galen said, well, since you took the time to enter, you might as well win the whole thing. And so now it's kind of like, oh, yeah, well, let me go ahead and see how far this thing can go. and so then I went and I started looking at, okay, who are the last international winners over the last 5 years, and how does my speech stand up to that? And, what do I actually have a shot? So, yeah, he gives a lot of confidence.
Wow. Regis, I don't know what part of Pennsylvania you live in, but you sound like Vernon Odom from Channel 6.
I'm not familiar with them.
Oh, he's from Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm right in the middle of Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah.
In Lewisburg.
Okay.
Yeah. So you heard of Lewisburg?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I'll put this out there. There are actually two things really in the entire city, and that is Bucknell University and the federal pen.
Okay.
I went to the university.
Bucknell's in where is it again?
There's something you haven't.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure, because there's Bucknell University and the federal pen. Okay. And I just want to let everybody know I went to the university. All right.
If Vernon Odom is a newscaster, reporter at Channel 6 News in Philadelphia, you sound just like him.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is good stuff. Brothers Bingham, are you surprised that both of you have gone down the leadership path in your life now? Is it a shock to you at all?
You know, I'll take that. You know, one of the things I have always thought, you know, I've always found it interesting growing up. I always thought that I was the one that was philosophical. And so when you start talking about a profession, I thought I would be the one going into psychology and philosophy and that kind of thing. And Regis was always to the point, common sense, you know, let's just get it done. And so I would have thought that he would have been the one to be in business. But, you know, we seem to have kind of flipped that expectation. I don't know if Regis had that expectation or not, but it just seemed like our personalities would have been suited in the opposite profession. So.
Well, I don't know if it's just naturally geared towards leadership. I think for me, I was just living. And I think my parents, the things that they did and how they raised us, it just kind of lended itself to that. I think back to when I was playing soccer and my dad was the coach. Now, I don't know about for Galen, but for me, that was just torture. All right. That was brutal because he would always put me in situations that it didn't matter which one you chose, you weren't going to win. But everybody was looking to me to make the decision. So he would ask me questions like, so we're running wind sprints. And so he'll ask me, Regis, are you tired? All right. Now everybody's looking. That's a no-win question. So if I say, no, I'm not tired. All right. It's okay. Well, everybody get on the line. Let's run some more. All right. And if I say, yeah, I'm tired, is that, well, then we must be out of shape and out of condition. We need to run some more. So it's kind of like, why doing that? But what I realized later on is he was actually preparing me to make tough decisions and just make a decision, whether it's going to be right or wrong. You make the decision, even though people are going to be looking to you, and you just lead regardless of what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to make the call.
Yeah.
Good.
Bingham brothers, have you ever presented together?
We did do that one talk at Bucknell.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you talk about it because you
tell us about that. I'd like. How did that go?
It was very exciting. I was in my college years, and that was at the height of my militancy. I was militant 5.0, right?
On the campus of Bucknell University.
Right. As a matter of fact, I got into so much trouble, but the one that broke the straw that broke the camel's back when I actually had a signed contract to have Gil Scott Heron come and talk Bucknell. And they were like, look, you can't keep. I tried to get KRS-One there. I mean, but I think one of the best things that we did, it was for Black History Month, that we both came up there. We did a combination of poetry, just Black History Month speech. I think we were able to pull it off because we were talking to more people that looked like us than not like us. But yeah, that was very exciting, and a lot of people talked about that for months to come after that.
Wow, that was a long time ago, man.
That was.
Wow.
So which one of the two brothers is more conservative?
I would say Galen. Probably, yeah.
Really?
What's interesting though, because obviously politics and liberalism and conservatism, that's like main stage right now, especially in the US with the presidential campaign. And so my position is, for me personally, I tend to lead a conservative life, right? For me, I believe that, I should be able to do for myself. No one should have to help me, that kind of thing. At the same time, I believe that the government has there's an expectation that the government should be there to help other people. Back to what we were saying earlier. So although, my house is conservative, we tend to really try to look out for other people because, as my dad said, what good does it do for us to have if we have to go out and deal with a whole bunch of knuckleheads that don't, and they end up taking all of our stuff, right? So that doesn't really work.
I would say Galen is more conservative just from the order in which we grew up. And he always, because he was the first, he always had to tread light to try and figure things out.
Yeah, there are landmines everywhere, man.
Yeah. Whereas I was a little bit more free to just kind of go and because I had a roadmap, I had to be able to go. Now, the most liberal of us all is a younger sister, right? Because she was like, I remember she was in daycare telling kids, if you don't do what I tell you, I get my two big brothers to come beat you up. So
we walk in the room and kids go to crying. What?
So I think she's the one that is the most liberal of all three of us.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the themes that seem to be working through our conversation, and this is actually kind of neat for me because I always love hanging out with my brother, is that there's a lot that our parents did, and so now that I'm a parent, I feel a good degree of responsibility to kind of do the same thing for my daughter, because there's so much that we got from just watching how they dealt with things, how they tried to instill the right things in us, how they've been married for 150 years, right? And and I'm sure not all of them were as great as they appeared to be to us. Right. But yet they just decided that, this thing is going to work. And so when I approach, my own life and my own family, I've got that same expectation that this thing is going to work. Right. Because that's the way families are supposed to go. Right. This whole idea about, family in turmoil. It's just foreign to me. It's just foreign to me. Fortunately.
Well, gentlemen, we're coming to the top of the hour. I'm going to start winding it down, and one of the major reasons why I wanted to do this conversation is I know a while back the admiration you have for each other, let alone brothers at the stage you are in your journey now, but you've had this for such a long time. Mm-hmm. When you see brothers that have this leadership change in a positive manner, what do you tell them? If you get the opportunity to share with them, what do you tell brothers who don't have the leadership exchange that you do in your lives?
Well, one of the things that Regis talks about a lot is the responsibility to find mentors. And they're either mentors that know that they are mentoring you or mentors that don't even know your name, right? And Regis talks a lot about hidden mentors, in that he's hidden from them. They don't even know who he is, but he's using them as a model, as he said that he's used me in the past. And so I think that everyone has that responsibility to look for the clues of success, because this life thing, this is hard work. Right?
Nobody gonna make it out alive.
Exactly. This life stuff's gonna kill you, man. And if you don't have a buddy, if you don't have someone looking over your shoulder, or pulling for you or showing you, this way or that way, I don't know how you figure this thing out on your own.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think once it doesn't take much for me to talk about leadership, but once you accept the title as leader, once you accept that role, then you've got a responsibility to lay the groundwork for someone else, right? You've got a responsibility even beyond the results that they may be charged with delivering. And so you've got to accept that the first step in being a leader is you've got to want to be a leader.
Mm-hmm. Say more about that.
Oh man, we don't have enough time. But yeah, it's like management. A lot of times people confuse management for leadership.
They do.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And in order to be a manager, you've got to have direct reports. You've got to have an organizational chart. You've got to have someone that comes to you if they want to spend $1. That's a requirement. If you don't have that, you're not a manager if you don't have those things. But to be a leader, to reach this point, you got to have a vision that people are willing to follow.
It's true.
And you've got to care about, to be an effective leader, you've got to care about the bottom line, but you got to care about more than the bottom line. Because if you only care about the bottom line, all that you're going to get is what you asked for. But if I care about more, I'm going to get what I asked for, and then I'm going to get a little more. And that's the only way to do that leadership thing is you got to find a way not to work so hard. Mm-hmm. And that's by caring about people beyond the bottom line.
Working hard in terms of the management aspect.
Yeah. So this for me, this falls under what I call the Superman syndrome.
Yep.
And typically the way you advance, particularly in corporate America, is you start by being the super salesperson or the super whatever, right?
Yeah, I can do all things by myself.
Because you're the super whatever, you get promoted to lead other people.
Right.
And the tendency is for people to still want to be Superman and put on the cape and fly in to save the day. And you can do that. But man, you're going to be working so hard. The better approach would be to invest in the people, to invest in your people so that they can do that. That they can do what you can do and even better, so that eventually, every now and then you can go play a round of golf, and just know that your team is delivering the results.
Yeah.
And then what will happen is they'll start doing amazing things. They'll start thinking amazing things,
mm-hmm.
and they will attribute that to you.
They will.
Just because you created that environment.
They will.
And I just think that's an easier way to lead.
Yeah, man. I mean, I subscribe to that. One of the last blab we were on together, I was talking about that concept of leadership, which focuses on, as you talked about, corralling people around a vision, and it's all about influence. And when you get to the point where you have to pull and push people to do something, that's not leadership, man. That's going through the motions. You know what I mean? And so the reality is, whether it's between family members, whether it's in corporate America or in Regis's case, everywhere he goes.
Don't give him any more suggestions, man.
Leadership is what you're able to corral people around, whether it's over an extended period of time, whether it's a short project, whatever, man. And so I definitely subscribe to that, man. And what I'm learning, even as I'm putting together my next book that's being published, a lot of people are missing the core competency of leadership because they can't lead themselves. They don't have the capacity, the skill set, the ability to get themselves to achieve a goal, or goals that actually mean something. I'm going through an experience now where I'm watching a leader and I'm questioning, what is it that you're really trying to accomplish? Because it seems like you're following a prescriptive path towards what somebody told you is the most effective methodologies of leadership. And it's almost like somebody putting together every leadership theory into a pot and calling it a stew and saying, take some. And the reality is, as a leader, you don't create stew. You create distinctive meals that meets the dietary needs of your followers. And I got to write that down.
But you got to get it when it comes, man.
It is the truth.
Got to get it when it comes.
It's the truth, man. It is a dietary. Being a leader is all about meeting the dietary needs of your folks, man. That's what it comes down to.
Hey, there's a guy.
You can add your point, Galen. Go ahead.
All right, so last
Go ahead,
last
Galen.
thing from me, man, and it's there's a guy on Blab that I met on Blab that is he's creating his own version of Google.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of anyone even taking that on, and so they asked him, so what experience do you have to do this? And he said, well, you know, I've written a lot of the stuff that you guys interact with. You just don't know it because I was working for other people. So I've got the qualifications. And so then someone asked, so why did you decide to do it? And he said, dude, I've heard so many people talking about this. At some point, somebody's got to start coding, right? Someone's got to write a code. And so when you think about leadership and when you think about our upbringing, it's one thing to talk about what needs to be done. It's one thing to talk about supporting your family. But at some point, somebody's got to write a code. Someone's got to do something. And one of the things that I've often really, really enjoyed about hanging out with Regis and hanging out with my sister, to Regis's point, is that, you know, we can sit and talk about stuff and we can have a great time talking about stuff. But at some point, one of us is going to ask, okay, so what are you going to do? Right? Is this just a conversation or are you actually going to do something? And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about being in the family that I'm in.
And to that, I don't meet just for meeting's sake. We're a family of doers. And so even if I just wanted to meet for meeting's sake, here's the true story. I was sitting there talking with Galen and Dana. I said, you know, it'd be nice if we go like on Family Feud. I said, wouldn't that be cool? Just kind of go, who would be on the team and all that stuff. Next thing I know, Dana done researched how do you get on Family Feud. Here's the auditions. It said, okay, so when we putting this together? I was like, well, I was just talking.
It's true.
But yeah, we're just a family of doers.
That environment. Excellent. Well, before we shut it down tonight, I'd like to first of all say thanks to Regis and Galen for joining us on the conversation. Also, thank you, Dr. William P. Clark. I keep on calling you that. And some final words from Regis and Galen when it comes to brotherly leadership. So whoever would like to go first, and then we'll close. And when you do give your takes, also either say where you can be contacted side in the comments side.
You go ahead and go first, Galen, since you're the older.
Okay. Yeah, you know, so just for me, it really leadership comes down to three things. It's painting a very clear picture of what winning looks like. It's removing barriers that stand in the way of winning, and it's inspiring people to take action. And you know, that's I found all of those attributes within my family. And my brother is definitely one of the main people that I go to when those three things get cloudy for me. So if you don't have someone that you can go to bounce off crazy ideas and to tell you that you're not going crazy, you need to get someone. And if you can't find a physical living person, find a book, find someone on YouTube that you can kind of lock in with and say, okay, is the world upside right or upside down? Because without that, I don't know how you do this thing called life. So you can find me on Facebook at Leadership Residue LLC. I'm on Twitter at Leaders Residue. I'm on Blab all the time, usually on the Dr. Vibe show in some form or fashion. And then my website is www.leadership-residue.com. And you can always buy my book. It's on Amazon.com. I got 2 books out there. So that's another way to get a hold of me.
Excellent. Regis.
All right. I'm a serial entrepreneur. and I believe that everybody to some degree has a business, because if you start talking to people about get too personal about their family stuff, they say, hey, that's family business, butt out. So if you're running a business, and even if that's family business, you also have to take a look at who are your teammates, who do you have around. I'm fortunate enough that my biggest supporters are also blood related, and they know me well. But I've also done a lot of family counseling enough to know that sometimes your biggest supporters aren't your biggest detractors are blood related. And so just because you are related by blood does not make you brothers or sisters or whatever. So you got to take a look at who is actually on your team, have the same vision for you that you have, that you're trying to put forth, and you work with that. I've been very fortunate, very blessed. It wasn't my doing to have the parents that I had. That wasn't my doing. I just kind of drew the lucky card, right? And have a family, brothers and sisters that really support what I'm trying to do, and understand me in a way that sometimes not a lot of people do. So as a result, if you want to get in touch with me, you can email me at regisbingham@wealthwave.com. I'm also have a radio show that you can do on TuneIn Radio. It's called The Way of the World, which is a radio ministry that I do. I'm also on Facebook in Community Connection Williamsport, which is a philanthropy initiative movement that I'm doing, amongst other things.
Excellent. Also like to thank William Clark for coming in and making the conversation better. I have one last thing I want Regis and Galen to ask before we turn off the recording. What would you say to brothers that aren't getting it right at this time?
I couldn't hear your question. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, what would you say what is your message for brothers that aren't getting it right with each other at this?
My advice, what I would say to them is, dude, you're wasting time. You're wasting time. Life's too short, man. It's too short. We spend so much time just kind of messing around the fringes. And if you don't have someone in your corner, you need to get someone in your corner. One of the adage that we used to kick around the house all the time is either do it or stop talking about it. Those are your choices. Either do it or stop talking about it.
Mm-hmm. When my perception is that when family members spend more time, and brothers in particular spend more time just going back and forth, if you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, neither one of them have a vision for their life. And so that's why they have time enough to just kind of go back and forth with each other. If you were to ask either one of them, what do they want? Neither one would probably be able to tell you. So my suggestion is to really figure it out what it is that you want. I have a book that I love to read that says, write the vision, make it plain. All right. And that applies to my life. I write a vision for what do I want my life to look like. I make it real crystal clear, real plain, and then I go for it. And then I look for people that are going to help me get there, and other people that are heading that direction, I can help them along the way. So that would be my suggestion for anyone. I really, if somebody's just heading down a different path and really aren't trying to go along the same path that I'm headed down, that's okay. I mean, we're just traveling different paths. I'm not trying to convince anybody that you got to follow along the road that I'm headed, because that may not just be where they're headed. And that's where family and really understanding who's on your team is all about. So that would be my suggestion.
All right, good stuff. Well, that is good closing conversation for the Dr. Vibe Show. I am Dr. Vibe. You can reach me in Twitter at drvibeshow. You can email me dr.vibe at drvibeshow.com. I'm on Blab. I'm on Fire Talk. I'm on the Good Men Project. I'm at Cuisine Noir Magazine. I don't know how many jobs, but they're all fun. It's all good. So I just like to say thank you to everyone who stopped by the conversation tonight. I did put a link in the comment section if you appreciate you taking a quick little survey about whether it's this show or other Dr. Vibe shows. The only way this conversation get better if you about the conversation. So it's 2 minutes, short and sweet. We will certainly have Regis and Galen back on. Galen's back on Saturday anyway, so he's already there, and he's probably back to sleep too. But I want to leave with this thought that I was sharing with Galen before we got on, that I had a moment this week, and I asked myself, what's my purpose? I had a moment where I asked myself, what's my purpose? And then there goes Galen with the James Brown thing again. And I said to myself, okay, if I know my purpose, I'm living my purpose. And I fully believe that Galen and Regis are living their purpose. And I think that their purpose was mapped out long time ago from their parents. Their purpose was mapped out for them. So I really appreciate them both taking time. I really enjoyed the way they interacted with each other when I first met them together. And I said, wow, this is a great example on how things need to be between brothers, because a lot of times the relationships that we have aren't good within a family. And we have to realize at the end of the day, at least in my book, God and family are first. So if that ain't right, a lot of other things may not be right. So just my thoughts, just sharing. So we're going to do a quick little after show, but what we're going to do is shut it down now. So thank you very much again. Keep the faith. God bless. Peace be well, and keep the faith.